start out with the very first thing is, what is clutter?
Mm.
And we're going to identify, for purposes of this course, a class, clutter is anything we don't need, want, or use that takes our time, energy, or space and destroys our serenity. So clutter is noisy and it can destroy your serenity. Okay, there are there's actually more than that, but there's 7 types of clutter that we'd like to focus on now that may be hiding in your home. So for people who are starting out, probably this information will be helpful to you. And for people who have been on the journey for a while, it's a good reminder.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah if you're new around here, and today we're talking about 7 different things you can declutter today. And these aren't just individual items, but it is categories of clutter. And not even just obvious categories of clutter, such as mugs or kitchen towels, but specific types of clutter that could take you in a variety of directions and help you view categories of items in your space a little differently. My hope is that after watching this, you're able to declutter at least 7 items, maybe 1 from each category. So let me know in the comments if you're able to do that. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First up, we have the I should have gotten rid of this a long time ago items. These are items where we hold on to them for whatever reason for far too long, but eventually we have that light bulb moment and we think, you know what, it's finally time. Why was I holding on to this for as long as I was? Sometimes these items can be difficult to identify because we almost don't notice them in our space anymore. We're very used to having them and we're not actively questioning, do I need this? Is this adding value? For me, a recent example is actually our coffee table. We had this, it used to be brown, then I painted it white, coffee table, and we knew we weren't going to have it forever because the sides, it was a triangle on the bottom, so if someone leaned on one of the sides, it would tip, and obviously, for future kids, that's not really a safe thing. But we ended up letting go of that and switching to a much more minimal design of an end table based upon something that we had seen at hotels when we were on our road trip. And I love the feel and look of it so much more. It takes up much less space, so our area is more open, and it also has a smaller surface, so the more you shrink a surface, the less likely random things are to pile on the table. So I encourage you to really look around your space and think, are there any items that I really should just let go of now that maybe I should have dealt with a long time ago? Next up is the not worth it item, an item that you purchased with excitement or you obtained somehow and were excited to use it. Maybe you had it for a certain purpose, but it did not ultimately fulfill that purpose that you hoped it would. This can have a variety of examples. I think clothing can certainly be one. I know I've struggled with this when I've been trying to find activewear that I enjoy. I might find a pair of yoga pants or leggings that I really like, and when I try them on, it's fine. But then when I'm actually, running in them or using them, for physical activity, they start to ride down or they bunch up in a weird way and the fit's just not what I had hoped. Likewise, I think with cooking equipment, if we're buying a different cooking appliance or accessory, we might try it out, but it doesn't maybe seem worth it, or we just don't get the intended use out of the product. I know a lot of people swear by cast iron pans, but for whatever reason, probably a variety of reasons, it just wasn't a good fit, and I never liked using it. And the cleaning process was irritating to me, so ultimately I let it go. Even though that's valuable to someone else, or even though it might work for someone else, if it doesn't work for you, there's no shame in getting rid of it, and don't let the financial guilt piece hold you back or feeling like you should keep it because, others find value in it. It's your house, it's your life, let go of it if it's not going to be useful. The next category has to do with pseudo sentimental items. Certainly many of us struggle with different sentimental items where we feel an emotional attachment to whatever that item is. And there's nothing wrong with feeling sentimental about items. I think it's all about focusing on the most important sentimental items so you can honor those better and protect them better and even just know where they are. But there's also items that I'm calling pseudo sentimental items because maybe we feel like we should feel sentimental value or an emotional connection to them, or society tells us that this is the type of thing that you keep, but we might not actually feel that way. And if you don't feel that way, don't feel the need to keep them. Some common examples could include different photos. So just because a photo exists of something from your past or with your family doesn't mean you need to keep all of them, or even any of them in certain cases. You can decide. I know I was going through some baby pictures of myself that my mom had given me. Just in one of the albums, there were like 20 pictures of me all looking almost the same, and I just decided to keep one of those images and threw away the rest because fundamentally, I don't need to feel sentimental about every single one. Likewise, cards. If you've got old greeting cards from people that don't really say anything super profound that really deeply touches you, then why not recycle it? We don't need to feel the need to save every little piece. A third example I'll give for a pseudo sentimental item could be with certain souvenirs, especially if it's more like junky souvenirs that are often purchased but maybe mass produced or not even made in the destination that you went to. Let's say you're into different refrigerator magnets that say where you traveled to. If you don't actually get value from those anymore or don't even really consciously look at them, and picking it up doesn't really make you feel excited or think back to the trip, then do you need to keep it? If you're not using it, then maybe it's just adding fridge clutter. So those are just a couple examples to start you thinking about if there are any pseudo sentimental items in your space, and if so, maybe you can tackle a few of them. Next, we have the what even is this item? Have you ever been going through some of your belongings when you come across something you, number one, don't remember how you got it in the first place, and number two, maybe you have no idea what it does or what it goes to? And in general, with this type of clutter, what I have found is if I don't know what something is, then I'm not going to use it, at least 99% of the time, because my brain won't have that idea of, oh, I have this particular object that is used for this purpose. I'm not going to reach for it. It's probably just going to sit around in some sort of drawer, cabinet, box in the basement, where I don't think about it, out of sight and completely out of mind because I don't even think I know what it goes to. And in these cases, feel free to let them go. Of course, it might be helpful to do a little research or digging around first to see. That's also very satisfying if you can figure out, hey, I had this, I didn't know what it was, I looked it up, and I definitely don't need it. Or you understand where it came from in the first place. That can be super helpful as you're thinking about moving forward. And I know for me, an example of this has to do with tools. It was so sweet, but when Jake and I first got married, my grandpa actually gave me an old toolbox of his with a bunch of random tools in it. And I love the gesture. We still have kept many of them, but there were some that were just either so old, decades old and not really as functional anymore, or were just like old and greasy. And there were others that I truly had no thoughts of even how I would use the item. And so for those items, I did end up getting rid of them. And I'm happy to say, at least at this point in over 7 years of, being out on my own with Jake and now over 3 years of home ownership, haven't regretted it. There haven't been any items where I wish I would have saved that for those types of what even is this items. So I encourage you, when you're going through things, if you find those different objects that you truly have no idea about, what's the harm in letting go? Or at least learning what it is before you let it go.